Hey everyone, welcome to another deep dive. Today we're going to be looking at a book that really kind of shook me up a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
It's called The Book of Life, Daily Meditations by Jiddu Krishnamurti. And it's basically daily reflections, but they're not your typical feel-good kind of
I
reflections.
can imagine.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
some serious mind-bending stuff in here,
Yeah.
and we're going to be talking about that.
Awesome. I'm excited.
Yeah. So one of the things that I thought was really interesting was his take on learning. It's not the traditional way of thinking about learning where it's about filling your brain with as much information as possible.
Right.
He has this one quote that really stood out to me. It says, "Learning is never accumulative. It is a constant movement."
It's fascinating how he dismantles the idea of learning as this linear process, right? Like you're
Yeah.
climbing a ladder and just gathering more and more knowledge. But instead he's saying it's about being present, attentive, and open to new insights at every turn.
Yeah, it's like those aha moments that you have sometimes.
Yeah.
When you're not even trying to learn something new, but suddenly something clicks and you see things in a different light.
Those are the moments where real learning is happening, I think.
I think so too.
Hmm.
And it made me realize that I've been so focused on the end goal of learning, like getting that degree or mastering that skill,
Right.
that I've forgotten about the joy of just the process of learning itself.
Absolutely. It's about the journey, not just the destination.
Exactly. So how do we kind of shift that mindset? How do we move away from this idea of learning as accumulation and more towards this idea of learning as a constant movement?
I think it starts with questioning everything.
Okay.
Questioning our assumptions, our beliefs, even the things that we think we know for sure.
And Krishnamurti talks a lot about the trap of authority, right?
He does. He's very skeptical of any kind of external authority, whether it's a teacher, a guru, an institution, or even a book.
Even a book like his.
Even a book like his.
Mm.
He doesn't want us to blindly accept what he's saying. He wants us to question it, to test it out for ourselves.
It's like he's saying, don't just take my word for it. Go out there and experience it for yourself.
Yeah, and I think that's where real learning begins, when we start to question the things that we've always taken for granted.
And that could be pretty uncomfortable, can't it?
Oh, absolutely. Because it means challenging our own beliefs,
Okay.
our own sense of who we are in the world.
And sometimes those beliefs are so ingrained that we don't even realize that we're holding on to them.
That's right. He calls this psychological authority. These are the internalized rules and expectations that we often mistake for our own thinking.
So it's not just about questioning external authorities, but also the authorities that we've internalized.
Right, and those can be even more insidious because they're operating on a subconscious level.
So how do we start to identify those internal authorities? What are some of the signs that we might be falling into that trap?
Well, I think one of the biggest signs is fear.
Fear.
When we're afraid to question something, afraid to rock the boat, afraid to be wrong, that's usually a sign that we're clinging to some kind of authority figure.
It's like we're looking for someone to tell us what to do, how to think, how to be.
Exactly. And that prevents us from developing our own inner compass, our own sense of what's true for us.
And that brings us to another really mind-blowing concept that Krishnamurti talks about.
Yeah.
The illusion of the self.
This is where things get really interesting.
Yeah, I know.
Because he's basically saying that the self, as we typically understand it, this solid, unchanging entity that we call me, is actually an illusion.
That's a big one to swallow.
It is. It challenges everything we think we know about who we are.
So what does he mean by the self being an illusion? Like, are we just walking around like empty shells?
He's not saying that we don't exist, but rather that the self isn't this fixed, unchanging thing. It's more like a process, a collection of thoughts, memories, experiences that are constantly in flux.
Okay, so it's like a river.
Exactly. The
Yeah.
water is always flowing, always changing, but we still call it the same river.
I like that analogy.
And so it is with the self. We're constantly changing, evolving, growing, but we still cling to this idea of a solid, unchanging self.
And that clinging is what causes a lot of our suffering, isn't it?
It does. Because when we identify with this fixed sense of self, we become attached to it. We start to defend it, protect it, and that creates all sorts of conflict and separation.
So if we could let go of this idea of a fixed self, what would that look like? What would that feel like?
Well, I think it would be a state of incredible freedom and openness. We would no longer be bound by our limitations, by our fears, by our need to be right all the
It
time.
would be free to just be.
Exactly. And I think that's what Krishnamurti is ultimately pointing to, a state of being that is beyond thought, beyond language, beyond the limitations of the ego.
And how do we get there?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And I think Krishnamurti would say that there's no easy answer. There's no one-size-fits-all solution.
It's a journey of self-discovery.
It is. And it starts with being willing to question everything, even the things that we hold most dear.
And to be open to the possibility that we might be wrong.
Exactly. Because in that openness and that willingness to let go of our preconceived notions, that's where true transformation can occur.
So it's about more than just accumulating knowledge. It's
Yeah.
about fundamentally changing the way we see ourselves and the world around us.
That's right. It's a radical shift in perception, and it's not for the faint of heart.
It's a deep dive in every sense of the word.
Indeed it is.
And we're just getting started.
I'm excited to see where this takes us.
Me too. Stay with us. Welcome back. So we've been talking about this idea of learning as a constant movement and the illusion of the self.
Right.
And now we're going to dive into something that I think is really relevant to all of us.
Okay.
Relationships.
Yeah.
Because, like, let's face it, relationships can be a real challenge sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
Can't they?
For sure.
They can bring up all sorts of stuff, our insecurities, our fears, our need to be right.
Absolutely.
All that comes out in relationships.
It's like a mirror.
It is like a mirror.
Right. Reflecting back all the stuff that we don't always want to see.
And sometimes we don't like what we see, so we try to change the other person.
Yeah. Or we blame them for our own unhappiness.
Right. It's like,
Yeah.
It's your fault that I'm feeling this way.
Exactly.
But Krishnamurti has a different perspective on relationships.
Oh, yeah.
He sees them as an opportunity for growth,
Hmm.
an opportunity to learn more about ourselves.
So it's not about finding the perfect person.
No.
It's about using relationships as a way to evolve.
Exactly. And he talks about this idea of observation without judgment,
Okay.
which is really hard to do,
It is.
especially in the heat of the moment,
Yeah.
when you're feeling triggered or upset.
Right. Because our natural tendency is to react,
To blame.
to defend ourselves.
Exactly. But Krishnamurti is saying, can we just pause for a moment
Take a step back.
and just observe what's happening?
Without judging ourselves or the other person.
Yeah. And he says that when we can do that, that's when we start to see things more clearly.
We can start to understand the underlying patterns that are creating the conflict.
And that's where the real transformation begins.
It's about becoming aware of our own stuff.
Our own baggage.
Yeah, the things that we're bringing into the relationship.
And then we can start to work on those things.
And that can be really challenging work
It can, but it's so worth it.
because it leads to more fulfilling relationships.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
And Krishnamurti also talks about this idea of not seeking security in relationships.
Now, that's an interesting one.
Because, are we all looking for security in relationships?
I think on some level we are.
We want to feel loved and supported and safe.
Right.
But Krishnamurti is saying that when we cling to that need for security,
Hmm.
we actually create more suffering.
Because we're limiting ourselves.
Yeah, we're afraid to be vulnerable.
We're afraid to let go.
And that prevents us from experiencing the fullness of the relationship.
So it's about finding that balance between connection and freedom.
Yes.
It's about being present with the other person without losing ourselves.
And that brings us to another really important concept that Krishnamurti talks about.
What's that?
The importance of being alone.
Now, how does that tie into relationships?
It might seem counterintuitive,
It does.
but Krishnamurti believes that in order to have healthy relationships,
Right.
we need to be comfortable being alone.
I think I'm starting to see what he means.
Yeah.
It's about having that inner strength.
That sense of self-sufficiency.
So we're not relying on the other person to complete us.
Exactly. And when we can do that, when we can be comfortable in our own company, then we can approach relationships from a place of wholeness.
Rather than neediness.
Yes. And that's when the relationship can truly flourish.
Because there's no pressure.
No expectation.
Just two individuals coming together to share their lives.
And that's beautiful.
It is?
But it's not always easy to get there.
It takes work.
It takes self-awareness
It takes a willingness to let go of our old patterns.
and to embrace the unknown,
Because that's where the real growth happens.
outside of our comfort zone.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And that brings us to another key aspect of Krishnamurti's teachings,
What's that?
the nature of thought. Because he believes that our thoughts can be both a source of creativity
Okay.
and a source of suffering.
I can see that.
Right.
Yeah.
Like our minds are constantly chattering. You're just
Yeah.
jumping from one thought to the next.
It's like a monkey mind.
It is a monkey mind.
Yeah.
And Krishnamurti is saying, can we just quiet the mind for a moment
Find that stillness.
and observe our thoughts without getting caught up in them.
Without judgment.
Yeah. Because he believes that true insight, wisdom, compassion, all those things emerge from a state of thoughtlessness.
Okay. Now that sounds a little paradoxical.
It does.
How can we function without thought?
He's not saying that we should stop thinking altogether, but rather that we should become aware of our thoughts and not be ruled by them.
So it's about having a choice.
Yes.
About whether to follow a thought or to let it go.
And that's where meditation comes in.
Meditation?
Yeah, because meditation is all about training the mind.
To be more present.
To be more aware.
Get some more still.
And Krishnamurti's approach to meditation is really interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Because he's not advocating for any specific techniques. He sees meditation as a way of life.
A state of being.
That permeates all our actions and interactions.
So it's not just about sitting on a cushion for 20 minutes a day.
No, it's about bringing that same awareness, that same stillness into everything we do.
So it's like a mindfulness practice.
It is.
But it's not limited to any particular time or place.
Exactly. And Krishnamurti believes that when we can do that, we can bring that awareness into our everyday lives.
We start to see the world differently.
We start to see the beauty in the ordinary.
The sacred in the mundane.
And we start to experience a deep sense of peace and contentment.
That's beautiful.
It is. And it's available to all of us.
If we're willing to do the work.
Yeah, it's not easy.
But it's so worth it.
Because it leads to a life that is more fulfilling, more meaningful, more joyful.
And ultimately, that's what we're all searching for, isn't it?
I think so.
A sense of peace and happiness that doesn't depend on external circumstances.
Exactly. And Krishnamurti shows us that that's possible.
It is.
If we're willing to let go of our old patterns.
To step outside of our comfort zone.
And to embrace the unknown.
The adventure of life.
The journey of self-discovery.
And that's a journey that never ends.
It's a constant movement.
Just like learning.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of it.
I love that.
So keep exploring, keep questioning, keep diving deep.
And who knows what you might discover.
I can't wait to find out. Okay, so we've been like deep in the weeds with Krishnamurti's ideas.
Yeah.
About learning, the self, relationships.
Oh, it's a lot.
It is a lot. It's like heavy stuff, but good heavy.
Good heavy.
But I think we need to like step back now.
Okay.
And like try to see the bigger picture.
The forest for the trees.
Yeah, exactly. Like what does it all mean? How do we like actually apply these ideas to our lives?
That's the big question, right?
It is. It is. And one thing that keeps coming up for me is this idea of direct experience.
Yes.
Like, it's not enough to just read about this stuff, right?
Yeah.
You have to actually live it.
Embody it.
Embody it, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, walk the walk.
Yeah.
Not just talk the talk.
And that's where it gets really challenging.
It does, because it's like stepping off a cliff, you know?
Into the unknown.
Into the unknown, with no guarantees.
Right.
But Krishnamurti, he's like, come on, jump!
He is. He's like, don't just take my word for it. Go out there and experience it for yourself.
And that can be scary.
It can be terrifying.
Because it means letting go of all our comfortable beliefs.
Our assumptions, our ideas about how things should be.
Exactly. And like, who are we without all that?
That's the question, isn't it?
It is. And it's a question that I don't think has a simple answer.
No, it's a process.
A journey.
A constant exploration.
Yeah, and maybe that's the point.
Maybe it is.
That there is no destination.
Just the journey.
Yeah, and like along the way, we might catch glimpses of truth.
Insights.
Moments of clarity.
But they're fleeting.
They are. They're like little sparks.
And we have to be open to them.
Yeah, and not try to grasp them or hold on to them.
Just let them come and go.
Like the breath.
Like everything else.
Exactly. And I think that's what Krishnamurti is trying to teach us. That the truth is not something out there.
It's not a destination.
No, it's within us.
It's in each moment.
And it's always unfolding.
Constantly changing.
Just like us.
And the world around us.
So I guess the question is, are we willing to let go of our preconceived notions?
Our fears, our need to be right.
And just be present.
Open.
Receptive to what is.
Because that's where the magic happens.
That's where the real learning begins.
That's where life truly comes alive.
But keep diving deep, keep questioning, keep exploring.
And most importantly, stay curious.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time.